All right, let's do this, heroes. I am back on YouTube Live. I'm being kind of quiet tonight because my whole family is asleep. However, what I wanted to do this week is attempt to teach about something Jewish every day this week on YouTube Live, and the only time I could do it today was right now at 10:30 p.m. I'm going to send out some tshuva. I'm going to send out some apologies, beg for forgiveness, because I had accidentally scheduled this for, I wanted to schedule it for tonight. I accidentally scheduled it for last night. And so a bunch of people showed up yesterday, and I'm really embarrassed. Like, I was asleep and I woke up in the morning and people had sent me texts of, wondering if I was okay. And one of our heroes here, Kathy, sent me a full transcript of like 5 pages of chat of people learning about Purim together in my absence, which in a way is a little embarrassing. But I'm not going to lie to you, pretty excited about it as a teacher. So I see like somebody's texting me over there, so I'm just going to check and see who that is. It might be my housemates telling me to shut the stuff up. So 1 second. No, in fact, it is not. It's way better than that. It is my friend Nick who just texted me that he officially became a member of the tribe today. I actually got to see Nick at the AJU today, and I'm like just over the moon about this. That I got to meet somebody who listens to the podcast, watches the videos and stuff, and he came in from out of town with his rabbi and his family. Got to meet all them, and that was just an ace experience. Met a couple of two other people. I was there for their conversion today. One was both of them were students of mine. One was in a class with me the whole way. One we learned with occasionally. And so I met 3 people that I know online who became Jewish today, and they weren't the only ones, but there was some more around the world. But today was just a really great experience for that. So because I was doing that, couldn't live stream this morning, so we're doing this at 10 o'clock at night. Let us see who is in the chat to learn about the 4 main mitzvot of Purim today. So we've got, and I'm kind of close to the mic, being kind of quiet as I can be. I get so jazzed about this stuff that I tend to get louder, and so I'm trying really hard not to do that right now. Let's see who's here with us tonight. We've got, it's good morning from Germany. Very nice to see you, Vanessa. Kathy's here from California. We got Britain, Mazel Tov, yo! I'm so excited to see Britain here today. I know I get unruly sometimes. We got Michael is here from Utah. We got Teresa saying Mazel Tov, Nick. Vanessa, it is 6:30 a.m. in Germany. That is super early to get up and study some Jewish stuff together. Let's see who is here. Cass P. Also converted at the AJU. Mazel, very good to see all this support coming out for people who are taking this step on their spiritual journey. Heard an incredible story today about somebody who was describing the experience of going to Friday night services, and she could literally, well, maybe figuratively, she was a very spiritual person, somebody who's in the Jew Curious School, which was all the more so exciting. But she could, when she was in Friday night services, and there's a part in Friday night services where you turn around toward the door, often in the back of the sanctuary, and you welcome the Shabbat bride, or the bride of Shabbat, because it said you should welcome Shabbat like she is a queen or a bride entering your presence. And there's a part in the song Lecha Dodi where we turn around and welcome, in sort of a symbolic sense, the bride of Shabbat into our midst. And she said she felt that. She saw it, maybe not with her eyes, but more with her soul, that experience. And then she had this experience along her journey of feeling like a bride. And so she went from the space of seeing a bride to being a bride, and that transition was just a really remarkable thing to hear about. So, very cool things going on, and I want to jump right into the 4 mitzvot of Purim. I don't know how long I could talk tonight before the neighbors start like kicking down the door. So let's see. Let's do. I usually am doing this in the daytime when they're all at work. So. I don't judge if you work. Go right ahead. I'm going to teach Torah instead. Beats working for a living. I'll tell you that. So we got Whitney's here from Florida. Ruthie is here. Oh man, we got so many great return customers, repeat offenders, veteran learners. Let's put it that way. That's probably the nicest way to put that. So let's jump right into the 4 mitzvot of Purim. And they might not necessarily be what people associate with Purim. We're going to be talking more about that over the next couple of days. So if you have questions about those things, we might bracket them. I may bracket them till tomorrow or the next day. Tonight we're going to talk about the main mitzvot. And the main mitzvot, as people in the chat without me yesterday figured out, the first one is to hear the Megillah being read. Megillah is a Hebrew for scroll. There are actually like 5 Megillot in what's called the Ketuvim, or the back part of the Tanakh. And one of them is Megillat Esther, or the Scroll of Esther. And this is something that we read on Purim. The whole holiday of Purim celebrates the positive outcome, let's say, of this story of Queen Esther in the ancient Persian Empire. Historians kind of place this. The king was called Ahasuerus, but the historians kind of connect that with what other people would call either Xerxes the First or Artaxerxes the First in that reign. And there was an advisor of the king who was somehow put out by having Jewish people around. Not a fan of the Jewish people, had a particular run-in with a particular Jew and said, and this was Mordechai, Queen Esther's uncle/cousin, some sort of relation who had guardianship of her. And this one advisor to the king, we'll call him Haman, boo. And Haman, boo, that's not his real name. We just boo when we say his name because he's such a dastard, I think is a nice way to put that. He has this encounter with Mordechai where Mordechai does not bow down to him, where everybody's supposed to bow down to the king's sort of chief vizier. What else are you going to do? But Mordechai wouldn't, because Mordechai was a Jew and decided he wasn't going to bow down to any human being, right? He would only bow to God. And so Mordechai took this personal offense with one dude and made it this whole thing where he decided he was going to plan the genocide of the entire Jewish population within the empire of Ahasuerus. And then when that plan came to light, at least Mordechai and Esther knew about this plan, and Esther decided she was going to basically out herself. She was the queen of this empire, but had never revealed to her husband that she was Jewish. And she picked an opportune moment. Nevertheless, she was really risking her life in that moment. And she said, look, if you're going to take care of all the Jews in the kingdom like that, you're going to have to take care of me too, because I'm one of them. So do what you got to do, King. And King was like, no, I love you. And who cooked up this cockamamie idea anyway? Come on, boo. So that happened, and we celebrate this sort of near-miss victory, like we were about to be slaughtered, and the king instead decreed that, couldn't cancel his original decree of genocide, but instead decreed that we could, get up early a couple of days ahead of time and arm ourselves and defend ourselves. And so we wound up stopping that genocide. And so every year we celebrate this. We celebrate this by principally reading this story again, like hearing this read. And so the ideal is that you hear, if you don't read it yourself out loud from a scroll, you hear it being read out loud from a scroll, like not just, out of a book or an app or something on your phone, but somebody reading it from the scroll itself. And so you can do this. Synagogues are popular for this. Go to a synagogue. Ideally, you want to hear it read at least once in the evening, Erev Purim, which is this Wednesday night. We're doing this in, let's see, the year 5779. This is the they got a little hiccups tonight. The Gregorian or secular year of 2019. If you're watching this video later, check your calendar. But right now, we are hearing this story read this Wednesday night. And if you can go back to a place or go to a different place and hear it again during the day of Thursday, that's ideal. If you can't, you can't. But if you can go hear it on Wednesday night and hear it again on Thursday, that's the best. Like I said, synagogues are a popular place to go hear this done because they usually have one of these scrolls and somebody there who knows how to read it. And sometimes it's usually done in kind of a festive way, like they read the scroll, but there's also kind of a party involved. So don't just think you're going to hear, a book on tape kind of situation. There's usually some festivity surrounding it. So you could really enjoy yourself while you are fulfilling this number one most important mitzvah of Purim. And when you hear the scroll, you're going to hear this little part near the end when after the Jews were victorious, Mordechai decided that, you know what, it's not enough to celebrate this once. We are going to celebrate this every single year. And it is in the scroll itself that Mordechai writes this down, sends letters to like all corners of the empire where Jews might be, and say, every year at this time, you are going to read this story again, and you are going to partay. You are going to have a Seudat mitzvah. That is the second mitzvah of Purim, and that's the Seudat mitzvah. Seudat mitzvah just means a mitzvah meal, right? A meal in honor, like a festive meal in honor of doing a mitzvah. Other times we have a Seudat mitzvah at a bris, right? At a baby naming, right? Or at some sort of welcoming a new Jewish person and a new person in general, because they're babies, into the Jewish people, whether it's a boy or a girl. You're supposed to have a festive meal after that to celebrate the mitzvah. The dinner after a wedding ceremony is also a Seudat mitzvah. And so anytime you're doing, have a big mitzvah, marking a big occasion in somebody's life, then you're supposed to have a big meal. And this was kind of a big occasion in the Jewish people's lives. We were almost didn't make it in the Persian Empire. And so Mordechai said to everybody from now on, every year at this time, to remember this occasion, we're going to have a Seudat mitzvah. You have a big festive meal. And we're going to talk another time about the drinky drink part of Purim. There is a custom of indulging in intoxicants, traditionally alcoholic intoxicants, but different parts of the world have their favorite intoxicants. I am broadcasting from Southern California right now, just saying. We're going to talk more about that on Wednesday morning, excuse me. But that is part and parcel of this festive meal, and that is the second. The first one, again, is reading or hearing the story read, right? Because every year, part of our holidays is sort of rereading that part of our history, that part of our narrative, our family origin story, as it were, to sort of put ourselves in that position, to remember what that was like. We'll be doing that again in a month from now for Passover, but for right now, we're just going to concentrate on Purim. And so you read it, you eat and drink about it, and then there's two more mitzvot that are sort of intimately connected to the Seudat mitzvah. The first one is matanot. I'm going to do that one last. That's my favorite one. The third one we're going to say is mishloach manot. Mishloach manot means mishloach means like you send stuff out. Manot is food, right? Like mana, like man, right? It's just so you send out food. This is basically it's not like you're sending out for food, not like Chinese takeout or ordering a pizza or something. You send gifts of food to friends, right? I mean, your chances are you're going to have a party with your family anyway, God willing, if you're close to your family, but not just to family, but to friends, just people people you're friendly with, frenemies maybe. But it's a nice thing to send gifts of food to people because, again, everybody's having a Seudat mitzvah. So why don't you not only have that yourself, but also contribute to other people's mitzvah? And there's a custom that you should send at least a couple of different kinds of food. So you're not just like, picking up a burrito at 7-Eleven and FedExing it to somebody. God forbid, I don't know what kind of shape it would be in. But you should have at least two kinds of food and send them to at least send those two kinds of food to at least two different people, right? Because it's gifts, it's matanot, right? It's manot, it's plural, And you can say the plurality has to do with the species of food that you're sending and also the plurality of the people that you're sending it to. So we give gifts of food to friends. And I just happen to have a couple right here. Let's see. My friend Britt gave me this morning. Popular item for Mishloach Manot is Hamantaschen, right? Hamantaschen right here. And I put them right here because they could go here or they could go here. And let's see, I picked the wrong week to give up carbs. I'll tell you that. I might make an exception on Purim. Hopefully, I'm sure these will keep. But a popular food gift is Hamantaschen. That's one of the names we have for them. That's sort of a Yiddish word. Hamantaschen means Haman's hat. Haman, boo, this bad guy, or Haman is sometimes said, boo, again. It's said that he wore a three-cornered hat. I don't know where this came from. I know this was popular with pirates and also maybe soldiers of the American Revolution. I didn't know it was popular back in ancient Persia, but I guess it was. So we have these triangle-shaped cookies, right? And so this is Hamantaschen. This is Haman's hat, his three-cornered hat, although his was filled with his head, not with raspberry jelly. I much prefer the raspberry jelly to an evil dude's head. I'm just going to go on the record, taking my stand. So that's one of the gifts that we have for Mishloach Manot. And you throw some candy bars in there, throw jar of pickles. You do you, right? It's just as long as it's food that's appropriate for a gift. Preferably sealed and things like that, and it'll keep for a couple of days in case you have to do it early. You can send apples if you really want to be health conscious about it. But that's one of the things we do. We send gifts of food to friends. And so that's mitzvah number 3. Remember, we've got hearing the scroll, reading the scroll yourself or hearing it read. We've got the Seudat mitzvah, the festive meal. We've got the giving of gifts of food to friends. And then the last one, and I'm going to say sometimes overlooked, but this is actually my absolute favorite one of these. And I like me some scroll, right? I like me some festive meals, right? You look at me, I'm still trying to lose a little weight. That's why it's hard for, having a cookie holiday right now. But my favorite one of all is Matanot Levionim. And matanot it means gifts. It comes from matan or notain is to give. When we receive the Torah from God at Mount Sinai, that's called matan Torah. So it's the same Hebrew root. So matanot is gifts. Le'evyonim, an evyon is a needy person. So matanot levionim, again, this is, you should, some people translate this as kind of tzedakah, like you give money or charity to people so that they can buy food, but you could just as well give gifts of food to the poor, whether you're given cash so they can buy food or gifts of food to people who are needy. And sometimes I think I said poor there. It could be poor, it could be needy. People are needy in a bunch of different ways. But somebody who's got less resources, less fortune, just whatever's going on in their life, if they are needy, it is a mitzvah on Purim to give to them. And this is true all year round, right? You can always give tzedakah. You could always give charity. You could always, the word tzedakah actually doesn't 100% correlate with charity. In Hebrew, it's related to the word tzedek, or justice. Giving resources to people who lack resources isn't just an act of kindness. It's an act of somehow restoring justice in the world. Like when there's a great disparity between the haves and the have-nots, that can be seen as an injustice itself, an unequal distribution, or it could be something that contributes to injustice. Like if there's a permanent underclass, if there's a permanent gap between the haves and the have-nots, that tends to contribute to a less just society. And so that's a little bit of a tangent there, but I like to teach that about tzedakah whenever I can. That in the Jewish consciousness, the act of giving to someone is not just about generosity or altruism. It's actually increasing justice in the world. And so this is a great mitzvah for Purim. You give gifts of food or resources to purchase food to people who don't have the means. And what I especially like about this on Purim is, if you remember 2 mitzvot ago, We have the Seudat Mitzvah. We have this festive meal of celebration. Well, can you imagine going into Purim with, just a very full and intent heart on celebrating this holiday, and you didn't have the means to fulfill a mitzvah, right? Yes, hey, everybody's out partying and everybody's having a great time and having a big meal, and I can't scrape ramen together. Like, that's dire straits. Those things are like 10 cents a piece. You get the kosher ones, they're like $2 a piece. But in any case, if you can't scrape ramen together and everybody else around you is partying, that feels terrible, right? And so not only are we restoring some equality and some justice to the world when we're giving gifts of food to people who need it, we also become shlichei mitzvah. We become like agents of mitzvah. We enable needy people to have a festive meal, right? And sometimes the society can be very cruel to people and say, like, hey, like, if you're just barely scraping by, what are you doing celebrating? Like, what are you doing getting a big turkey for Thanksgiving? What are you doing, getting a big $100 brisket for Passover? I don't know if you've been shopping for kosher brisket on Passover, but that's a deal right there. Some people say to poor people, like, you're just scraping by. How are you doing this big do for a holiday when you could feed your whole family for a month on that? Well, why keep people out of celebrating this victory, this redemption, this miracle for our entire people? Everybody should be able to get in on that. And I think that is the root behind this fourth and favorite mitzvah of mine of Matanot Levionim. Right. So just to back up and review, we've got 4 main mitzvot of Purim. That is reading or hearing Megillat Esther, the scroll of Esther being read, ideally in the morning or in the evening, in the beginning, in the evening, and then again the next day. We have the Seudat Mitzvah, which is a big festive meal. And this could be at the synagogue, this could be your house, this could be, whatever you want to do. Go to a catering hall. I don't, go to your favorite kosher restaurant or your favorite restaurant, as the case may be. This Purim, you should know, is not a holiday like Shabbat or Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or the Shlosh Regalim like Passover, where you're not allowed to conduct business. You can actually go to work on Purim. You should maybe knock off a little early to hear the scroll read, and you may not feel like getting up in the morning if you have a really big Seudat Mitzvah. But you can go to a restaurant, you can celebrate, you can go out and spend money, you can go spend money on food to give to somebody, right? But so, you have your reading, you have your Seudat Mitzvah. Make sure, especially if you can do it a little ahead of time. Usually these Mishloach Manot, and somebody actually gave me Mishloach. I'm going to show this. Somebody gave me this Mishloach Manot bag that says Mishloach Manot, and I just cracked up when I saw this. This is a rabbi who gave it to me, and I was like, "That's a rabbi. Always be teaching." And so it's got Mishloach Manot, and then the definition, literally sending of portions, and can also be called a Purim basket, gifts of food or drink that are sent to family, friends, and others on Purim. Origin Hebrew, in case you didn't get that because it's written in English. But you send Mishloach Manot, you do it a little bit ahead of time so people can maybe enjoy some of those treats on Purim at their festive meal. And then finally, and I like to think most importantly, is Matanot Levionim, giving food or the resources to acquire food to the needy so that they can celebrate this occasion just like you. And that doesn't mean you have to give it to just Jewish people, right? Maybe you give it to somebody who's not Jewish and they're not celebrating Purim. But they don't need to know that. They can just get food, and that's a real solid you've done for another person. So that's the bulk of what I wanted to teach tonight. And so I'm just going to jump into the chat, see who has joined us, see what questions people have. Let's see who we've got. Just starting over, we got Carla. Says, I was booing when Rabbi said the name Haman, that we boo Haman. Here's a tip. So if you are going to a Purim spiel, this is something that we do. It's related to the mitzvah of the Megillat Esther, the reading of the scroll of Esther. Sometimes a community will do a Purim spiel. Spiel is a Yiddish word from the German spiel or play. And so this is often a Purim play where, let's say, and again, it's not just synagogues, schools, other communities do this, but let's just say for a synagogue where I've been hanging out recently is doing one on Wednesday night. And accompanied with the scroll reading will often be a play about the story of Purim, but it's not just like a straight, Shakespearean drama. It's usually a little bit fun, right? It's spiel, has the word play there. So it's often kind of a comic retelling of this generally comic tale. Like if you read the story, there's some like scary swordy parts of it, like with knives and swords and people getting put up on sticks and stuff like that. But it's sort of structured like almost a Shakespearean comedy, or it's a little bit farcical. The king's kind of a doofus. He's got this conniving, snidely whiplash kind of vizier, and who gets punked, near the end, and then gets, at the very end. But it's a fun story in a sense. So there's some fun, there's some very like scary, dark parts of it, but there are also some funny parts of it. And so people in this spirit of festivity will tell the story in kind of a humorous way, or they'll have some sort of theme. Some places really do it up like a Broadway musical. I know that one rabbi I talked to today said their synagogue is doing sort of a selection of Disney movie songs related, just sort of Disney themed song parodies to go along with the Purim story. The place I'm doing it at this year, Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center, is doing a Moana themed. And I said that to somebody today, and they're like, "What about marijuana?" And they're like, "Nope. I know it's Southern California, but it's not marijuana. It's Moana, which was a sort of a Hawaiian themed Disney movie, and we're doing this Moana themed Purim spiel. So if you want to, hear the tribulations of King Aloha Verosh, come to Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center this Wednesday night. That's my little plug right there. I get no money from those, but I get a little money. So anyway, this is a thing that people do, and so go experience this. Go to this fun play. And it's a good time. And you get the rabbi gets dressed up in costumes. The cantor gets dressed up in costume. Everybody is in there in costumes. Again, that's the spirit of the holiday. Tomorrow morning's live stream, we'll talk more about why the costumes. Like, what's the big deal with the costumes? Oh, why was I talking about that? Because Carla said, when I said the name Haman, boo, she booed on the other side of the live stream. Right? She like chatted and boo, but I could just hear her saying boo, because part of the tradition is that we are supposed to kind of erase the name of Haman or strike out the name of Haman. And so whenever somebody says Haman, either in the scroll reading or in the Purim spiel, everybody boos, and sometimes they make noise with noisemakers. There are these little things called groggers, which make kind of a rattle sound. But here was my point. When that point is stuck in my throat. When you go to a Purim spiel, I want you to take with you, and you may be the only one who does this, but I'll know. Take with you a box of macaroni and cheese, and not like a takeout box from a restaurant of like hot, soft, moist macaroni and cheese, but like the Kraft dry box. You should probably maybe get like a hechshered version, like a kosher one. Some places get weird if you bring unhechshered food into the building, but bring a dry box of macaroni and cheese and use that as your noisemaker. Whenever you hear the name Haman, boo, you just rattle this box of macaroni and cheese. It makes a terrific sound. It's an excellent noisemaker. And when you're done with it, you can put it in the box. A lot of synagogues have a box for food donation. So you use it as your grogger, you use it as your noisemaker, and then you donate it to a food drive, and then that's two mitzvahs. Like, you're participating in the Megillah, and you're also giving matanot le'avionim. Some people ask me, is that mac and cheese box powder by the end of the night? This stuff is terribly resilient, right? This is like bomb shelter macaroni and cheese. Makes a great noise, and it could make a great meal for somebody or a whole family in the future. So that's a great thing to do. That explains Carla's booing while I'm on live stream. I try not to take that personally. Let's see what else is going on here. We got somebody in Manhattan Beach. We have lots of events in the public if you want to attend. This is great. What I really love is how this community connects with each other while I'm talking about something else. I'm the kind of teacher that I love people chatting in the back of the room because it means we are building community here, and I'm happy to see that. So I got people on the chat inviting each other to their synagogues for Purim. So I couldn't be happier about that. Let's see. Do you think it would be just too funny our instructor could make it again? Let's see. Okay, just for fun. Haman. All right. Let's see if we get some booze in the chat. It means somebody said it means kosher Jello shots. Lol. Okay, that's something. There's a little something about drinking on Purim. Jello shots. Different people have different ideas about kashrut of Jello. You can make kosher Jello. I think that's a brand name. You can make kosher gelatinous dessert. If you like, and make Jello shots out of that if you are a drinking person. Just to be clear, we'll talk way more about this on Wednesday. If drinking is unhealthy for you, if alcohol is unhealthy for you, either for a medical condition, like, you shouldn't be drinking because you're taking a certain kind of medication or it's bad for your system. If you are in recovery, a different kind of medical condition where drinking would, hurt your recovery, you do not have to drink on Purim. You can, people can, if you're a drinking person, it's a common custom on Purim to drink. You do not have to, and I'll explain all that on Wednesday. Just trying to, make sure people still show up later this week. Let's see. My YouTube says waiting for Rabbi John. Let's see what's going on here. We got Whitney in the chat. What else is going on? We got Born to Be Happy life coaching with Lexi. Does it matter if I don't dress up? I am invited to Purim and I want to go. You don't have to dress up. Like, you don't have to do any of this stuff, right? But you just go and participate in what you're comfortable participating in and enjoy other people's costumes. That's totally okay. If you're not comfortable, you don't have time to get a costume, you're not a costumey person, I don't like making people uncomfortable. I like making people slightly uncomfortable. Like, I like encouraging people to go a little bit out of their comfort zone because that's how you grow. However, if you don't wear a costume, don't feel like you can't show up. It's not like a costume party where if you don't have a costume, you can't come in the door. Just go. Just go and celebrate, see other people's costumes, and maybe that inspires you for next year. So common costumes include characters from the Purim story. You could go as Esther, you could go as Mordechai, you could go as King Ahasuerus. If you have a three-cornered hat, like one of these cookies on your head, you can go as Haman, boo, and hopefully you won't get chased out of the building. You won't. People know it's a costume. The other thing, I put these by my ear earlier. These are also called Ozne Haman, right? The Yiddish for them is Haman Tashin, Haman's hat. The Hebrew, if you buy these in Israel, these are called Ozne Haman, which does not mean Haman's hat. It means Haman's ears. Apparently, he had this sort of Vulcan-like condition where he had pointy ears or triangular ears that were filled with jelly. I guess that sounds gross, but these are called Haman's ears in Hebrew. So I'm going to set that aside. Got some shout outs to Britton, who made the Hamantashen, who's on the chat tonight. Awesome. Aren't the gifts given on the day of Purim? You can do it on the day of Purim too, just for practical reasons. A lot of times people give those ahead of time, especially if you want to kick back for Purim yourself. And you don't want to necessarily be passing out gifts that whole time. And here's the thing, if you give it out a day late, right? If you wake up Friday morning, you're like, oh, I forgot to give out my gifts. Give your gifts, right? If you made food for people, give it to them. But sometimes people square it away a little bit early. I got these today from people who I probably wasn't going to see on Purim. This was going to be our only chance to connect, so they gave them to me then. That's totally fine too. Ruthie says, made some hamantashen. I got lots of booze in there. I guess I need to work on the quality of my videos and my teaching. That's okay. I'm a big lad. I could take it. Let's see. A guy at our shul comes as Jack from Jack in the Box with a round ball head and everything. Lol. Okay, that guy kind of weirds me out a little bit, but I don't judge. So that's Jack in the Box is very popular here in SoCal, other places as well, but we see those commercials all the time. So there's lots of different things you could do. I've seen some very creative Purim costumes. Trying to think. Some people dressed as, a couple of years ago, some people that I know dressed as I don't want to spoil it, sort of wildebeest-like creatures. They're not exactly wildebeest, same family. The name is spelled GNW, like a gnu, right? Those are called gnus. And so they had like antlers on their heads, and they wore T-shirts that said, "Not a real gnu." And there were two of them, husband and wife. Each of them dressed as a gnu, and then T-shirts that said "Not a real gnu." And it took us a little bit to figure out they came to Purim as fake news. It's kind of topical. A couple years ago, fake news, still kind of topical. Not going to get political here. But there's all sorts of different things you could do. Just be creative, be yourself. We'll talk more about costumes tomorrow, but just in case you have to plan. Kathy says it'd be fun to dress in 4th century Persian clothing. I wouldn't know how to dress in 4th century Persian clothing, but if you could do that kind of research, that is hardcore. That is a committed costume. And again, California is kind of costume place. I live in sort of the epicenter of Hollywood studios and stuff, and we have a ridiculous number of costume shops around here. Halloween is bananas. There's like one costume shop that's open all year round, and then it triples in size for Halloween, and then it contracts again. But you can always get good costumes here in SoCal. Come visit me and I'll hook you up, or I'll show you the right places to go. So, guys, this was awesome. Thank you for doing this with me this evening. Once again, my most humble, embarrassed, heartfelt apologies for messing up the schedule, not showing up last night when I said I was going to show up. I'd meant to schedule it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Really excited. We at least made Minyan tonight, which is very cool. So, if I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, I'm just really delighted to learn with you at all times. Once again tonight, just to recap, for people just joining us, we had the 4 main mitzvot of Purim. That is the scroll, Megillat Esther, either reading it yourself out loud or hearing it read out loud from a parchment scroll. And so you can do that at a synagogue. I've heard of outreach organizations like Chabad. Like if you can't make it to a synagogue, you have to work that day. They'll actually send a Megillah reader to your office or to a restaurant nearby you or something like that, and put on a Megillah reading for you so that you can fulfill the mitzvah. So reach out to Chabad or Esha Torah, or a place like that if you really want to. If you really, that's the only way you're going to get the Megillah read. I highly recommend you going to a synagogue instead, though, where you can be with other people who are in kind of a festive mood. That's number one, is Megillat Esther. The second one is the Seudat Mitzvah, the festive meal. Or the meal of mitzvah, right? It's celebrating this. It's a mitzvah to celebrate, so you celebrate, and you're fulfilling a commandment, right? And so some people, Rambam would say meat and wine. Everybody, that's what you have to have is meat and wine. If you don't drink wine, don't drink wine. If you don't eat meat, don't eat meat. Have a festive meal, whatever that means for you, and you are not only having a nice meal, but you are actually fulfilling a commandment about the celebration of Purim. The third thing is mishloach manot. Just like these guys I haven't even opened this. I don't know what's in here. Maybe I'll open it and see. Oh, check it out, y'all. I got a hamantaschen. It's got a candy bar stuck to it. It's not a candy bar hamantaschen. That's just got stuck to the jelly. I've got some more candy bars in here. Again, I hope I don't break any copyrights. I'm not plugging the Hershey Chocolate Company, although I am delighted. And just for health's sake, a piece of fruit. So I've got I've got 5 things in here, 3 different kinds of things, and that is one of the most delicious mitzvahs I've had all week. I'll say that. I'll just set that aside for breakfast. That orange, I don't eat oranges right before bed. But so that's mishloach manot. That's sending gifts of food to your friends. And the final one, super important. Sometimes this gets overlooked in all the festivity. That's why I like to keep stressing it. And that is matanot le'avionim. You give donations or gifts of food to the needy. And you could do that by giving food to people who are clearly hungry or needy. Give them the funds to purchase these things. And not just because it's a nice and just thing to do, but it's to actually help people who are just scraping by have a little extra, have a little joy in their lives, and be able to fulfill the mitzvah of Seudat Mitzvah, right? So you are actually not just doing a mitzvah, but you're helping somebody else do a mitzvah. as well. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I think I got another question in here. Does watching online count to fill the mitzvot? They're different. So Carla asks, great question. Does watching a Megillah reading online and hearing it read online as opposed to in person count as hearing the mitzvah? And so there's different opinions about this. I'll say some people say no. Some rabbis say no. You have to be in the room and hear it. There's different opinions about a broadcasted voice, right? And online would be this. Before there was an online, people are asking this question about radio broadcasts or being on a conference call. And some communities say that's not the ideal way to do it. You really want to try to be present in a place because there's no kind of break. You're actually hearing it from the voice in real time of somebody who's reading it from the scroll. That is the ideal way to do it. I'm going to say if the only way you can hear it is by hearing it online, hear it online, right? And this online stuff wasn't imagined by rabbis centuries ago. They were like, online, what's that? That's where you put your clothes when you want to dry them because we don't have dryers apparently. So if you can be present, be present. If you can't, watch it online. I will give one more push, one more little nudge. Another benefit of hearing it live is that you're around other people who are celebrating just like you. And that has an additional community effect to it, which I always recommend whenever you can take advantage of that. So so in classic rabbinic fashion, I'm going to say yes and no. It depends on where you're from, depends on who your rabbi is. But if you can hear it, in a place, go to a place. If you can't, listen to it online, hear the story, because that is an important thing to do. That's a good thing you do. No Torah study is ever wasted. I'll say that. So Uber Megillah reading, if you can't get it, that's a great idea. You can order food from Uber now. So I guess maybe you can order a Megillah reader on Uber as well. So listen, everybody, I'm going to sign off for tonight. It's getting a little late here in SoCal. My wife in the other room is probably waiting for me to stop talking so that she can finally go to sleep. But I really appreciate everybody doing this learning with me today. The rest of this week's live streams will be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's sort of my preferred time. If you've got a better time that works for you better, let me know in the chat or send me an email or something like that. But my goal is to do this every single day. That's not Shabbos or a holiday, right? Shabbos or a holiday, you go have a holiday, and I will too. But for the rest of this week, it's going to be 9 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the custom of having costumes, the custom of costumes, the costume custom of Purim. Where does that come from? Why, we don't have any other costume holidays. What's special about Purim that we wear costumes? Wednesday morning at 9, we're going to be talking about the drinky drink, right? We're going to be talking about the custom of consuming something to become intoxicated on Purim, why many people take that seriously, why some people take that too seriously, and what to do if drinking is not your thing, if you're allergic to grapes, if you're in recovery, if it's bad for your health. Are you failing Purim? Spoiler alert, no, and we'll talk about why that is. And I think that's important. It's a question I've gotten a lot this week. Like, do you have to drink to celebrate Purim? The answer is you can, but you don't have to. And we'll talk about different classical sources on this, like 500 years ago, and even back to the Talmud, let's say 1500 years ago. There were those who took the drinking part very seriously, and there was also bad consequences of that. And they talked about it in our classical text. So we'll talk about that more on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to do something completely different, which I totally forgot what it was. But on Thursday, we're going to talk about something Jewish, I promise. Check my channel page to see what that is that we're going to talk about on Thursday. And then, sorry, it's getting kind of late after a long day. On Friday, we're going to talk about the Parashat HaShavua. We're going to talk about the Torah portion of the week, which this week, it's the second Torah portion of Vayikra or Leviticus, and it is Tzav, and it is a doozy. So join me on Friday morning at 9 a.m. for a doozy of a weekly Torah reading study. And that's what I want to get across tonight. Really appreciate the minyan we made tonight, and then some great questions that we've had. And until next time, heroes, peace.